the volume. And let's see here. Let me see if we're live. Ashley Lee, how's Marvin doing?
He's doing amazing. Thank
Is
you
he?
for asking. Yes.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, we're family.
We are
We're
family.
all family. Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. We got nobody here. Okay. They'll come. I hear they come. Well, what's happening is we've really been suppressed. I mean, it's even in the Soulogy group. I put up 40 some odd posts today, and in the group there was about 350 posts today, and then now there's about 125, and I'm putting up a third of them. And I noticed on the, of course, nobody's getting the notifications, YouTube or Facebook, and then because I really track everything, I just try to stay on top of the energy. But what's crazy is the I guess they changed the algorithms or something, because I put up posts now. It used to be if I put up 40 in a day, there might be like 5 or 10 of them that will be like 200, 300, 500.
Yeah.
Now it's 20, 30, 20. It's crazy.
I know. I haven't been on Facebook or other social medias in about 6 months either. It's
I
just
noticed you've kind of
been a
disappeared. Somebody's in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Who's in Hot Springs, Arkansas? Good vibes, Caroline, Hot Springs. Yeah, I'm over in Van Buren, Arkansas,
yeah.
outside of Fort Smith.
Welcome everybody. We're so excited you're here with us.
Yeah, this should be good. It's been a while. It's been a while. God, what's it been, like 4 months? Maybe 6 months? Has it
Yeah.
been that
Maybe
long?
maybe 8.
Because we got together at least twice after Soulogy Fest. I know that.
Right.
Yeah, I know we did a couple of, maybe 3 shows. But anyway, so you're in Southern California, or are you in Sedona right now?
In San Diego, California. Yes.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Very
It's
cool. Very cool. And you're now, like the rest of us, approaching 2 years of this programming or suggestive programming called COVID and all the things that come from it. And of course, you've got a great perspective because you're a nurse, and you're also, through, for anyone that isn't familiar with Ashley, just query on Facebook or YouTube, Soul Speaks 5D Ashley, and there'll be Ashley Lee, and there'll be several shows. But she's a nurse, and she's also had an interesting, very connected, very sensitive, and also very conscious about contributing to the transformation of society through the workplace and through some other initiatives that you're involved in. But have you been in the trenches over the last few months, or have you been kind of out of that too?
No, I retired. I retired from nursing and bedside nursing in the
Really?
cardiovascular ICU September
Wow.
30th, 2021.
Wow.
When our mandates for vaccinations went through, I decided not to participate
Oh, so they had a mandate in
in California.
California
Yep,
I didn't know that.
for
I
all
didn't.
healthcare providers that were providing care at the bedside.
Boy, there's sure going to be a lot of, because this is the great revealing, right?
This is a great
Hey,
revealing.
nobody's going to get out of this, with anything being hidden, but they're going to have a lot of egg on their face. I mean, I saw some. I don't know where it was. Was it? I thought it was California. There was some place. I think it was California, and this came out a couple of months ago, maybe even a month ago, and there was 2 or 3 surges of the story, which was they didn't have enough healthcare workers. So not only did they invite the unvaccinated back in, but also those who had caught COVID, right? I
Yeah,
guess they had caught COVID,
yeah.
and not that they had COVID and come to work where you have it, but yeah. So, and you've seen a lot of that stuff turn around. There's so much information, disinformation. So obviously, it's affected you and your family in a way, and really a gift for you. So you retire at a
It,
very
it,
young age.
after 32 years.
Wow.
Um, but it's exciting to be on this new adventure and this opportunity of really immersing myself into the realm of energy healing and moving away from invasive medicine care and moving
Mm.
into opportunities to shift our energy before we need to go to those levels of medical care.
Yeah.
And so it's really an opportunity to help move the whole infrastructure of humanity into another realm of healing and
Mm.
self healing for each and every one of us. So I'm very excited to be on this aspect of my life's journey and our lives' journeys and
Yeah.
really committing ourselves to these levels of healing we never knew we could create before now.
Well, you know what's really become apparent too is how there'll be a certain intention behind, and it could be an individual, but we're talking about global issues, and of course, this is the biggest one, right?
Yeah.
But what's becoming apparent is, and I think even to the layman, so to speak, or somebody that's not in these types of communities, where the intention is meant to do one thing, and yet there's all these things that happen as a consequence that actually don't inhibit the expansion of humanity, but actually propel it, such as uh, the 9 to 5 paradigm going away, kids being homeschooled. But one of the things that seems to be pretty obvious over these last couple of years is that less people are going to, or they're doing exactly what you're saying, either by force or by flow, which is they're not going to the doctor, they're not going to the emergency room, they're exploring alternative, holistic methods of not only prevention but treating the symptoms of whatever they might be afflicted with. You would know more about that, though, right?
well, we're all experiencing it, right? We're always creating levels of health for each and every one of us individually and then collectively.
Hmm.
And right, and so it can be physical healing, it can be mental healing, emotional healing, spiritual healing. And what I like to call it in, your focus and your context this month on oneness is really something that's so near and dear to my heart and so near and dear to our opportunity of coming together and unifying or creating this unity sense of consciousness. Because when I know I can heal, for example, my asthma and allergies weren't healed through Western medicine, it was healed through a chiropractor and energy medicine. And
Hmm.
so that process of knowing that we can have these other opportunities for healing and then unify that amongst one another is phenomenal.
Yeah. And there's been quite a few people that were public about their interaction with COVID, including myself, and it's a really good point you make. Because, like in my own case, I approached it. Um, I guess I was lucky or new to approach it from an energetic standpoint. So I engaged it through, what I would have to call like a dimensional experience, and it was just strictly me versus the universe because it was just another face of the universe. But other people, uh, and I won't really get into names because I don't know. I mean, even though they've been public, that's kind of weird. But people that have gone into the hospital,
Yeah.
people's families that have endured it. And it's interesting because a lot of what you hear through at the outcome of the experience, once it's all said and done, is a very spiritually based, energetic perspective, a whole different kind of narrative or way that to look at things and to which is also I think maybe something that's being propelled by this whatever ill-intended or predictive programming that didn't work, whatever you want to call it.
I really agree. And when did you experience symptoms or challenges
Uh,
with it?
October, I think it was October the 10th, the same day
Okay.
Franco got it, which was interesting. And then I just found out just a few days ago. I might come out with some of this information because it's still kind of being put together. I'm still kind of putting it together, but it's. I found out that another friend of mine uh, who's had some hair loss. And I saw the post. I'm like, don't worry, I got it too. And I found some information, and supposedly some people do lose hair, but that it starts to come back after 6 to 12 months. In fact, mine is already starting. I can feel it. But anyway, they got it on the same day we did, and
Right.
And
How
so
does that happen? You didn't swap spit, did you?
no, they're in another country. And
Right,
uh,
exactly.
obviously Franco is, yeah, exactly right. Yeah, that went right over my head.
No,
But
that was my
but
no,
the
that
thing
was my
that's
point is like
uh,
how is this occurring? Because when COVID first came out, I got it, the
yeah,
gamma format of COVID from a client. She was reaching out
uh,
literally, and I felt her. And the next day, I got the symptoms, and I said, "Why am I getting the symptoms? I know I don't have COVID, but I can feel it physically in my body." And my inner guidance said, "So you can learn how to clear it."
yeah,
So I was learning how to clear it in a conventional pathogen kind of virus kind of format. But since I don't know, I want to say since August and up to now, people are getting COVID in a very different way than is typical or pathogenic.
oh yeah.
They're
There's no,
using
yeah.
weapons
There's
and frequencies to
well,
impact our bodies
yeah.
in a negative way.
Well,
And I was looking at, wow, how do you clear that? And how do you help people through those types of symptoms when they're getting impacted by uh,
that could be a whole
5G
week.
frequencies, scalar waves, all these
Yeah.
other different formats that are
That could be
impacting our
that could
bodies?
be a topic for a whole week of shows.
That's
So,
right.
I mean, myself, I don't look at it as negative. I look at it as a catalyst, as a initiation, or let's just say, the two dragons before the cave that you can't enter until you find that equilibrium. What I found interesting though in this recent developments is that, Franco's been coming into my space, and obviously, from the first day. And I've been talking to Kimberly about once a week, and so there's some things happening with her that, when she said that she's going to come out next month and come out on the show and start talking about some of this.
Oh,
But what's interesting though is there's like this connectivity. Like when I found out that my other friend had it, and I said, "When did you get it?" To the day. They said October the 10th. And I went, "Oh my God, wait a minute." Well, they were having experiences with Franco. So I had this conversation with them, a short conversation, just compared notes. And, talked about, our own, interaction and transformational experience. I get off the phone with them, and I go to uh, lay on the couch. And you know how it is. You always think that, oh, did I really experience that? There's just one of the benefits of being able to connect and find validation with other people. And I started to write something. Like something said, just start writing this thing. You're not going to sit on your ass on the couch and chill or veg out. And I got about 4 sentences into it, and I had that ego thing came in and went, "Who do you think you are? Like, what are you doing?" And all of a sudden, my light came on in the room, the ceiling light, which was off. And I went, "Franco, are you fucking serious?" And I just got, "Yes, you need to do this, and you don't need to, this is all real and it's happening, and there's some kind of connectivity taking place. So here's another sign." So I went, "Okay." So I finish it, I post it, um, and then I got up, made a coffee or something. And I sit on the couch for a second, and I start playing with my phone, and I start looking at those, like those TikTok things. And I got about three into it, and guess what happens? The light
what?
comes back on, and the message was, "Put that shit down. It's not a judgment. It's just distraction." Right. But my point in this all is that there's some type of connectivity. And this type of occurrence, again, I think lends to some things that's propelling us into, the universe finding itself again through us. Yeah. So, yeah.
I
Hey,
completely agree, and that sense of connectedness is so true, and the idea of oneness, and Morgan reached out and asked me if I would speak on it, and
mm,
I was like, I would love to speak on it and to speak into this conversation because it is so beautiful, and the opportunity really from even a pediatric standpoint and a children's standpoint with their parents, and this idea of oneness or this idea of unity, and how we're all connected and interconnected, and how do we begin these levels of sharing with one another. right? Not
Right.
only sharing not spit or contagions or viruses, but sharing the love with each other, sharing insights. And like you were sharing when Franco was really coming in to bring you guidance and
Mm.
support you and share the love with you. And sometimes that love can be flicking on a light and and not and sometimes it can be that inner voice or
Mm.
in our heart
Mm.
how we feel connected. It's really beautiful. I've been running thought experiments and processes with adults all around the world, a handful of adults, really connecting one to one with them. And it's so fascinating to see the variances of how we believe or we perceive the oneness or the unity that we are. Some
Wow.
people may believe, like, for example, when they eat something, I feel it becoming one with them. Or when I eat something, they feel it.
Mm.
Or when I feel a certain way or have an emotional reaction, they're experiencing the emotional reaction.
Mm.
And this is bringing those levels of telepathy and empathy and physical surrogacy to all these new levels of sharing and caring and being with one another. Whether someone is transitioned like Franco has, or another person living in their body just in a different part of the world,
Yeah.
like you and Morgan.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great example. It's a really good example.
And
Excuse me.
how we share and maybe many of us adults have thought that this idea of oneness is an intimate relationship, is a marriage, is a commitment to each other's, being with each other and loving one another, and only can you be one with somebody if you're intimate with them, but that's just
Yeah.
not true.
No, I mean yeah, you're talking about like nationalism, political affiliation,
Yeah.
convictions of religion. But no, I think you're right. I think for years, I know a lot of people have probably read metaphysical related books. I mean, I read for about 20 years just different things, and I always would think about when they would talk about, like, if you look at Eastern philosophies, talk about divine love, right? And of course, at that stage of the game, we've got less content to work with. But even then, I'd be like, "What is that?" It was like something I was chasing. And then, as time's gone on, to your point, I realized that it is an expansion of what we can comprehend of love, but it's so many more words to include things that may be less than romantic or less than almost scientific. Like
Yeah.
there's a spirit science kind of connection, and it covers everything. If I am feeling what you're feeling, I could have a different type of relationship with you, like say than I do with Morgan, right? But but it's still something going on. Like even with my friend, I mean, there was a whole series of coincidences that occurred over a period of like 6 hours that led me to my friend who I hadn't spoke to like you. I don't know if I did. Well, on the show I had, but I hadn't spoke to this person in probably in 6 months. They had been in hibernation. I came to find out. So how did that happen? Right?
Right.
Like, so how did all that happen? And I guess, we actually talked about it and just said, uh, we're not going to figure this shift out. We're just going to accept this and be thankful for it and keep on, doing the best we can, right?
I know. I woke up this morning in meditation and I said, Todd, I love you so much.
I felt
And
it.
I appreciate I felt
I'm
it.
not kidding. I'm
Did
not
it
kidding.
land? It land. I threw the ball and it landed.
Hmm.
That big ball of
Oh,
love.
somebody said, actually more than one. And I was thinking this at the very beginning. Now I feel a bit late to the party, but it's so amazing, and this can sound condescending, but it's not. Um, so amazing doing this show because I get to meet so many people, and some of those people I've met in the flesh, like you, and we put to the test how much hell the light can raise when we're together. But I'm just making a joke. But it's so
Especially in fun
amazing to
places around
see
America.
the it's so amazing to see the transformation of people. And I was just saying to myself when the show started, wow, you look absolutely different. Not that you didn't look good before. I'm just saying you can just see it in your energy. You're radiating.
Thank you.
So congratulations on whatever you've done to get to this point, and to everybody else.
Absolutely. We're all lifting each other up. Every morning in meditation, I really connect with every human being on the planet, and I really support uplifting everyone emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. And how can we connect to our inner giftedness, our inner knowing, our inner love, and really radiate that out every day? And so it's exciting. And I sense maybe the Schumann resonance, maybe all of us are really connecting and interconnecting through our hearts, and we don't really even realize it. But what is that like to wake up every morning and like knowing I'm going to be on the show with you today, and I'm so excited to see you and speak with you and be with everyone. And this opportunity, I was so grateful this morning, and I just said, "Thank you, Todd. Thank you for being you. Thank you for bringing forward all the beautiful conversations." Because it literally, I can't even imagine. We haven't made a machine, right? But how much has Soulology One or Soulology Speaks or Soul Speaks? How much has this show risen the human resonance on this planet?
I don't know.
Right? What does your inner guidance say? Mine says at least 35%, if
Oh,
not more.
yeah. I don't. I mean, I've gotten downloads over the years. I mean, even way
Yeah.
back, I got a download that, for example, I was saying for every engagement you see, multiply it times 50,000. But I've always felt like, certainly the macro, the micro, it's as we go as individuals, so goes the collective. And
Yes.
I just I look at like what you said. You wake up every morning and you basically, as evidently as a fractal of it all, that carries all within it, the droplet that carries the ocean. You basically go through a process of blessing and loving the world in your infinite mind and its infinite existence. And you know, I think these are the things that we've grossly underestimated and have been deterred and distracted from. And they don't seem like they make any difference or any sense. And that's why I've always said it's not about the number of likes, it's not about the number of views. It's about the energy that's being put out. And what I'm seeing happening, like even right before my eyes with you, my dear sister, is the illumination is contagious. And
It really is.
and I used to talk about you hear about the vulnerability, being vulnerable, and I realize now it's about transparency, and vulnerability is a step towards it, right? And I know you personally, and I'm blessed to know some things about you, not for the information given to me from you, but the fact that you shared with me as a mirror of you in trust and in love and in because I think that part of being transparent, going through the vulnerability to get to that transparency, is to actually not be afraid or fear that someone's going to laugh at you or judge you. And so that I was never lost on that, and I've seen you actually do that in other situations too, and other people as well. But these little things, I think, are the little seeds that are lighting up this grid. I really
It
believe.
really is, in that level of deep trust and getting to know one another. I just spoke with a colleague today, and we meditated a few days ago together, and he had an amazing experience. And I call it samadhi. I don't know if that's the right term, but really our meditations melded as one. And then we got to share and play together, and we got to share each other's different experiences, where we create, how we create, what we bring together. And it's not about this sharing IP or sharing, our intellectual property or our ideas about the world. It's really being open to share in such a way that we illuminate each other,
Mhm.
and we're right, and we see the giftedness in each other. And then I shared it with him, and he shared it with me, and together we created something greater than we could have done than we would have done individually.
Yeah.
And I know that creates then a ripple effect and an influence on the planet and with other people. And it's so exciting to share these ideas of how do we become one with each other? How do we become friends? How do we become colleagues or professional people that are working together, or even intimate partners like a spouse? or a child. Like, what does that mean to become one with your child? Well, you kind of already are. But then in another way, are you volitionally? Are you intentionally?
Hmm.
And I think this is what brings up really deeper levels of conversation and experience and opportunity to trust one another, like
Yeah.
you were pointing towards,
Yeah.
right? Is this idea of when we get in each other's inner sanctums, connecting with each other as one or in a unified field, have we cleared ourselves? Have we cleared our conflicts? Have we straightened up maybe less integrous situations we might have created earlier in our lives that we didn't know was still affecting other people, including ourselves? But when we have this opportunity to really go deeper inside of us and clear these discordances or blips or challenges or conflicts with each other, we open up this whole new field of awareness with each other to
Hmm.
relate in ways we never knew we could.
Yeah. You said a lot. You said a lot there. And everything's, I mean, we could talk about this. Well, let's talk about it. I mean, yeah, okay. So there's a lot to that. I mean, how do you unwrap that? I mean, for instance, you're right. If there's a distortion, it's always us. We know this. That doesn't mean that we're a doormat. It just means that we're taking the responsibility. So if I have, let's say, a discordant issue with a family member from 22 years ago, I don't necessarily have to pick up the phone and call that person. I could, and that may help and it may not, but I can do it here because I think at the
You can
basis of
hear too, right? I mean,
right, but
yeah,
I think at the basis of what you're saying is being open to the aware. You can't gain the awareness if you're not open to looking at it. And if the what the second nature, like riding a bike, and where the habit of is constantly has been to externalize things. This is a huge development, I think, in what's happened with so many people, has been to take responsibility, and that is not going to be anything but a full, abundant reciprocation from our experience, from the universe, or in our experience. And I think what you're describing, and I'll hand it back over to you, is as a result of this, there's this connectivity that's coming into play, where you don't force anything, where you learn to judge less and less yourself, because that's where judgment of others comes from. And then there's this collaborative, creative connection thing that starts happening. I just experienced this with our friend Ty. Ty and Serena came by for a night. He had a surprise for me. We did a broadcast, and he had this whole setup, and I didn't know that he wanted to show it to me because he'd heard me talk about what I'd like to do, and da da da. So we've just it's that same type of thing that's occurring for a lot of people. We don't talk. We might message once every 10 days or something. And it's like, we just got together last night and tested some software and hardware, and it was a beautiful experience. But what I'm trying to say is it was effortless. Everything was effortless. It was just organic. And it was so obvious to both of us that we said very little about the alignment. We just let it be, you know?
right,
So yeah, that's one of the things I think that's symptomatic of our progress is these little things that are not in the headlines, and they're not being broadcast. I mean, at least by conventional standards. So it's interesting, but yeah, you just and again, as a reflection of the collective in your field, it's like I'm talking to you know a totally different person that still contains the person I know, the higher self. You
yeah,
know, if we are the higher self, why don't we just acknowledge that, not from a place of arrogance, but of confidence that carries a humility, and have a conversation, put our best foot forward, knowing that we're still in process. But I'm talking to my friend Ashley Lee's higher self. I don't have to
right,
go into a session to do this. We can do this right now. We can do
right.
that
When
too. Yeah.
When we had our first interview together, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, and you said, "Oh, you don't have to prepare any questions or anything because I just talked to your higher self." And it's cute. I texted you back and I said, "What did my higher self say?
That's true.
What did my higher self say that we were going to talk about?" And and now, like you said, 3 or 4 years later, we've changed, we've grown, we've
Yeah.
adjusted. I just shared with somebody, what if we have the opportunity to live in our higher self that's driving our bus, in your case, or driving our stagecoach or driving our car, and we sit, instead of in the back seat, let's sit in the front seat
Hmm.
and have the higher self, ourselves, literally drive our bus, our car, our vehicle, our body, right? Drive us through life every minute of every day. It doesn't have to just be this one mystical or magical moment,
Hmm.
or this moment that we have to do when we go into meditation, or these kinds of
Hmm.
things that we literally live and breathe at every moment of every
Yeah.
day. And that's what you meant by talking about, even years ago, living in the flow, right?
Hmm.
Is living in confluence and unity. And that's what I sense we've been doing really strongly for the last 3 or 4 years, prior to even COVID starting, was we were learning how to unify our own selves,
Hmm.
right? We were
Yeah.
learning how to go, physically I feel this way, mentally I feel this way, even my left brain feels one way and my right brain feels something totally different. And when can we unify all these different sectors of ourselves
Hmm.
so that we feel whole? And
Great.
I think we've all been living into that, quite honestly, on many different levels. And then when we reach this level of unity within our own selves, and we're living that in moment to moment, day to day, breath to breath,
Yeah.
then what's natural and organic that unfolds is this idea of oneness.
Yeah.
If we're one with ourselves, then it's rather simple, right? And
Well, I think it
elegant and
happens.
graceful.
Yeah, I think it happens simultaneously, but
Yeah.
but we're so used to the linear experience that we need, well, we need days or weeks for it to be proven to us rather than just know it's there and don't try to explain it like I was talking about with my friend and I. But yeah, you really encapsulated all of that. Um, the and I like that analogy. I see it, and especially you went a little deeper, like the mental, the emotional, the left brain, the right brain. That's a good one. That's a really good one right there because that says a whole lot. Because you do have that masculine, I don't want to say mechanical, but let's say engineer kind of oriented, rational mind, intellect, and then you have that free flowing feminine that's intelligence and creativity. You know what I mean? And it is not one or the other; it's a blend. So in that car, if it's me, it would look like it would probably look like those cars that you go to when you go to the driving school.
Hmm.
And so the human aspect gets to sit in the driver's seat,
Right.
still in the driver's seat, but the higher self is over there where the instructor sits with another steering wheel and a set of brakes, right?
Right.
It's because I really feel like it's a tandem kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
it's almost like we've disrespected the human species and therefore ourselves because it's just as gold and just as God as the higher self or soul. So this is a really good analogy to me. I think, especially when you get into the what did you call it? The different compartments or the different
Yeah, I
aspects.
called it our inner boardroom, or
Mm,
who's driving the bus, who's driving.
mm.
I had a friend of mine on a massage table, and I was doing some energy work with her, and she popped her eyes open and looked up at me, and she said, "I just realized I was in the back seat of my own car." And I go, "That's awesome. Would you like
Wow.
to get in the front seat now? Hop over and get in the front?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "That's great."
So were you having a conversation, or she just popped out? That just popped out during
I
the.
was physically with her for an energy healing session in Colorado, and she opened her eyes and she said, "I'm in the backseat of my own car." And I
Wow.
said, "Wow, that's a good noticing. Let's move you to, where would you like to be? The front seat, the driver's seat?" I said,
Mm.
"Great, let's do it." Which part of you would like to do that? Is that your higher self? Is that your ego self? Is that your emotional self? Is that your younger self, your inner child? Who's driving? And when we get alerted or we develop clarity of who's driving our bus, our body, our life's experiences, then we can better discern how to navigate inside of that. And
Mm.
that's what brings me up to what I'm so excited about. You know, you had mentioned about, and I had mentioned how I retired from nursing, and now I'm really moving into the realm of creating energy mastery schools for people and the children, mostly for the children, and to help the children connect inside their innate oneness and their innate knowing and their deep giftedness, and connect that with languaging and the ways in which to express oneself inside the idea of oneness, because it comes natural to most children, this idea of oneness. So, for example, if we're walking down the street with a 4-year-old and the 4-year-old runs by the park or runs by a tree and hugs a tree, now the adults can have a conversation and saying, "You were feeling one with the tree? What did the tree tell you?
Yeah.
What does it share with you? What does the root say? What do the leaves say? What does
Or
it say as it's hosting all the birds on its branches?" You know, and then we develop this languaging in this conversation for it to be normal to go over and hug a tree
Mm.
and to become one with the tree. And then what does that feel like? What does that seem like? What interaction did you have? What conversation did the tree talk to you about? Those sort of things. And then it's not so weird and strange for us to recognize that we're interconnected.
Yeah.
So,
And
like
even
when,
even like imaginary friends.
right, but they're
They
not.
are, but they're
They
there.
might not be
You know,
imaginary,
I saw
they
I
might be
saw I
real.
saw a meme today when I was gathering memes for the group, and it said, "You want to raise your child to be a free thinker." So energetically, the same thing, right?
Right.
If you want to raise your child to be a free thinker, don't do anything. They already are. Just leave them alone, kind of thing, and support it versus indoctrinating them. Why are you hugging that tree? You might get bit by an ant, or that's really there's no one there. You know, you're already throwing them off the banana boat. You know, I mean, it's very true what you're saying.
Exactly. And so, this idea that we can then start to share how we are one with one another, then we can walk into the grocery store and somebody's having a hard time, or the grocery clerk is having a hard time. And then we can say things like, I sense you've had a hard time. You know, is there something that we can do to support you? And we're so glad you're here. And thank you for checking us out at the grocery store.
Mm.
And maybe the young child might even see into the experience of the grocery clerk and say, "I'm really sorry your doggy peed right before you left for work. It kind of stinks to have that happen to us. We all had that happen." You know, and then all of a sudden the grocery clerk's like, "Wow, that's so cool. She could read my energy. She could see what was going on with me, and she could see why I'm upset." And so what the 7-year-old did was help reframe the grocery clerk into saying that's not the end of the world, it's okay, and
Mm.
that other people really understand the challenges you might have experienced earlier in your day.
Yeah.
And then when we start to communicate that way, it's not so woo-woo or weird or strange, and it's an opportunity to expose ourselves in such a way that's honest, supportive, loving, even when we have challenges.
Yeah.
And we end up showing up with it for each other and resourcing each other in very different ways than trying to hide behind the veil of
Right.
who we are or what we experienced, or we have to keep that secret, or that, that's a bad thing, that we had a challenging emotion.
There's been a lot of talk over the years, and I think increased especially since October. These waves of preparation. We're being prepared for something. We're being prepared for something. And regardless of all the propaganda, you can see the pendulum swinging back. Like it's this force, like, say for instance, something that's like going on in Canada with the truckers, or in Australia with some of the, I just saw they're having a big thing on the 31st all over the country, and in Europe and such. So you can see that all of that false flag frequency stuff is not sticking. More and more people are waking up. It's being channeled and downloaded by people. It's being talked about. It's becoming apparent. I've had quite a few people come on the show in the last 2 3 months talking about how even people that aren't awake, using that term, they're seeing this or they're seeing that. But I'm wondering if that preparation is all about oneness. When when everything shifts over, and those things that have been in control apparently, and those things that have been in place as a let's say as a given, are no longer there, so that we're in a place of a higher level of compassion in order to, so to speak, deal with those people and those institutions. In other words, are we going to run them down in the streets and hang them, or are we going to be able to make this transition, or this transformation, with the tool belts that we've developed for ourselves, as individuals and as a team? Uh, I guess what I'm trying to say is I think there's going to be a need for a tremendous amount of compassion for not only victims but perpetrators.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We just had a global conversation yesterday about the concept of righteousness
Mm.
and what that means, and how do we deal with righteousness, and recognizing that quite possibly because we feel righteous about our beliefs, and then we want to put them on someone else or blame someone else for that problem, we end up hurting our whole selves, the whole planet. And righteousness then becomes tenets of war and geopolitical problems that challenge us to really solve the very deep essences
Mm.
of the conditioning we've experienced over generations. And we don't realize that it's time to kind of let that go and go back to, maybe it's okay to hug a tree, and maybe the ants will move around.
Yeah, maybe there's a lot to be said for that. Um, I think it was the same day, maybe a week ago, Morgan's house sitting and pet sitting, beautiful little dog. And I don't know, we were just comparing notes on that day, and she's like, "This dog's talking to me. This dog's," I mean, like, our level of communication just upticked tremendously. I'm like, yeah, I forget what happened with me, but it was obvious to me, or maybe we saw some things in the community as well. But it only makes sense.
Right.
We're not the only ones on the ascending incline here. I mean, it's a
No,
oneness is,
animals, the earth, everything is
yeah,
ascending, right? And
yeah,
and increased awareness. And what if in the energy field of the dog and the energy field of Morgan, there's more openness and
yeah,
free flowing energy between the two,
yeah,
and that opportunity for communication is more influential and more impactful and more audible, right? On the ways that we experience that connection and that communication with one another.
yeah,
It's beautiful that we have the ability to reconnect with animals and to really hear what they have to say and hear what they have to share, even the marine animals.
yeah,
And, how do we best clean up the oceans? How do we best clean up our waterways? How do we best clean up the land? And how we use or utilize animals and livestock on the planet. I mean, there's so much more when we increase our awareness and start to speak about our interconnectedness and our unity. The love flows naturally, right? It's amazing because conflicts create walls, or
hmm,
disturbances or discordances create walls that just don't really move the energy. But when we release all that by judgments and bringing in compassion, for example, it allows the love energy to flow freely back and forth and move in such ways and dynamic ways that we really haven't experienced on a global scale.
hmm, yeah. I'm just getting a quick laugh from our Soulogy comic Bruce, who's in love with Morgan and making innuendos. It's like, Todd, you don't have a jealousy streak, do you? Um, yeah. Um, the kids, the kids, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you work with kids
yeah,
for a long, long time. You're already a sensitive
yeah.
anyway, coming into this thing. I mean, I would say a hypersensitive, ultra sensitive. And it, I think that's really the final, what do you want to call it? The final charge. Like, I don't see how they're going to be held back. I know there's a lot of propaganda, and I know you go through TikTok and you see nothing but, tits and ass and people fighting and, just the old bullshit. But there's a massive amount of children being born and coming into different levels of maturity and awareness that I don't see how it's going to stop. I mean, I think it's just going to come like where this is coming waves, they'll come in as a triple tsunami or something. I mean, it just feels like, and I know,
I've been talking to them for years,
have you?
preconception.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
what they want, and how they want to present themselves, and how they want to be in the world, and what, and I think children of this magnitude have been coming through to the planet Earth for a very long time. They've been way showers, they've been savants, they've been geniuses, they've been very psychic. There's many too on many levels that may or may not have known how to navigate their energy, and then have challenges like someone was mentioning earlier on the post as well, about mental illness, or emotional and mental challenges. But all they are is differences in reality.
Hmm.
And we are so subjugated to a certain sets of rules and regulations and realities of this is how life is and this is how life works. And we've been generationally entraining that
Hmm.
throughout the generations for hundreds, if not thousands and more years inside of humanity. We have the opportunity to really bring forward and change these realities. And the way that we change these realities is we negotiate differently. And we don't negotiate through NLP, and we don't negotiate through hypnosis, and we don't negotiate through silver tonguing, or, coming up with some strategic, amazing ways of communicating to gaslight one person into thinking their way is the right way or their way is the reality. Is we really come together, is what I recognize was this idea called a synoptic pillar of truth, that irrespective or respective of our different perspectives on life, we can come together to the same point,
Hmm.
and decide in that, through consensus or heart-centered consensus, a reality orientation for everyone. So that's what I meant by the 4-year-old running on the sidewalk and going and hugging a tree. What is that 4-year-old's reality of the impetus to go hug the tree in the first place, then have the experience of hugging the tree, then letting go of the tree, and then walking back with the parents on the sidewalk, back on the walk, and then explaining to allowing the adult to ask the child to share their experience is a form of reality negotiation or reality orientation. So now it's the adult's opportunity to orient themselves to the 4-year-old's reality, and give the 4-year-old or give the child the space to be able to develop the language to share what that is.
Hmm.
And when we do that, then we afford, now the 4-year-old can start to talk about things that are experiential for them, that they would like to share with others,
Right.
maybe another friend,
Right.
and say, you're having a really hard time. The tree has a lot of things to tell you. Go hug the tree, and it's going to give you stuff that's so exciting. You're going to feel the love flow through the tree into you, or whatever. And they're going to go, wow, I didn't know that hugging a tree could be that an amazing experience. And maybe they're going to grow up to be a horticulturist, or somebody who grows trees, or part of the forest industry. I don't know. We never know what impact or insights we can give and support each other with, to really bring out the passion and the giftedness of each one of us that contributes to the whole of our society.
Yeah. Yeah. And who are those kids but younger versions of us? We
Exactly.
all, well, because you make a really good point. I mean, especially in these communities where people have specialties, or they have an affinity for, you know, uh, a star system, or an elemental species, or a certain skill or something, and we have gone through this evolution and uh, process of a, I guess, more maturity has come with it. In which, if you go back a few years ago, this is the way you do it, and this is how you do it, and this is how you do it, has become less and less and less. it's become more of a like a field of I guess a wider field of oneness. That less judgment, more open mindedness. But yeah, so these kids are younger versions of us, and I guess maybe in some kind of inverse energetic equation, they're affecting us. Yeah, without let's say the evidence of conventional human linear thought. You know what I mean?
Well, exactly. And it can move from even a conversation and languaging to an experience. So, for example, you could have the 4-year-old who went and hugged the tree and came back to mom. And then mom asked about what was your experience. And the child begins to start to share what that experience was like. And then you can ask the child, how did you feel? And the child may say, I felt amazing. The tree helped me feel strong and powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could say, what did you give the tree, right? A reciprocating relationship now with the tree versus the tree being the center of the conversation or the child being the center of the conversation. They're both the center of the conversation.
Right. Well,
And
and there
so,
be
and then that,
go ahead.
right, that child says, what did I give the tree? I gave the tree love and I promised I wouldn't cut it down. I don't know, maybe the child saw a tree cutter or something,
Yeah.
right? And then you could say as the parent, you could say to the child, will you share with me? Will you give me a hug around my leg or give me a hug as I bend down to hug you? Share with me the emotion or the experience you experienced with the tree. Now the parent and the child are beginning to exchange emotions from experiences that they had. Now all of a sudden you can see that their conversations in their future for the rest of their lives have radically changed from that one experience with the tree.
Um. Yes. And I wanted to ask you on that note. I know you work a lot with children, and I know you're very dedicated in what you do. But obviously, I would imagine you have to interact with parents too over all these 32 years, and
Yeah.
now that you're into this new. Are you seeing any development in the parents into where they're more allowing, more accepting, listening more, uh, more aware, or maybe even not being conscious, but just um, letting these kids, as the energy beings they are, be what they are and expand rather than compress. As everything was structured. Are you noticing that?
I want to say that I'm not noticing it as much as I'd like to.
Mm,
And I sense, and what you're pointing at, which is wonderful, is bridging the gap,
mm,
right? To move into this, you have had interviews all month to share with couples and people who are talking about becoming one with each other and coalescing each other's being
mm,
and being with one another. And now I'm bringing in the opportunity where children have that opportunity to do that with their parents, and friends have that opportunity to do it with friends or colleagues or other people that we didn't even know we could be that intimate with each other's energies and feel safe and trusting and knowing that we can share in those ways. And I agree with you, the bridge or the gap between some parents who may have been raised radically differently to be very individual, very separate, very
mm.
secretive, very quiet. Don't air your dirty laundry out, that sort of stuff. Don't talk
Right,
about conflicts,
right.
avoid conflicts. And let's just worry about what's for dinner and how they played at the soccer game. We have superficialized ourselves and our way of relating so radically. That's what's caused so much damage on the planet, is that
Yeah.
we've learned to radically be inauthentic with one another.
Yeah, bingo. You were a let's just go back for a second. You were a uh what is it? A emergency pediatric
In the
nurse?
intensive care unit, so newborn, pediatric, and cardiovascular.
Okay. So, wow. What a what a place to gain perspective and to experience life in ways, I guess, of such a serious nature that in our egoic lack of maturity, I mean, we've come a long way. Don't get me wrong. I'm our biggest cheerleader, but we often don't think about, we think our pain is so much greater than real pain. And you're in an environment where literally it's life and death.
Yes.
And not only is it life and death, but it's a life and death is with a child, particularly newborn, is a much different scenario than someone that just turned 60.
Yeah.
So you must have been able over the years to develop a certain relationship with death and a balance with life afforded to you by the path that you chose.
Yes.
How has that changed, or has it changed, or been enhanced since you left and you're now diving into this calling that was founded in that experience?
That's a really beautiful and deep, very deep question. And, I'd say it's a journey. I want to share with everyone, and I think a few years ago, in the spiritual world, we always said, everything has a purpose and everything has a reason. And what if prior to even coming into our body spiritually, we had a purpose or we had a process or we have a calling and we're embodying it in our physical bodies to live out that calling? So, to answer the question is you know, saliently as possible, I really want to share that everything that I've done is on target. There isn't anything that I haven't done that isn't on target. What I recognize for 32 years hanging out in Western medicine, disease-based medicine, and medicine that was definitely invasive and painful itself to keep someone alive, I recognize that a lot of my energy work wasn't ready until now.
Mm.
Because we were ready to grow as a whole collective. I wasn't here to do it alone. You weren't here to do it alone. None of us were. And what's so beautiful is we're organically walking into the taking. We first for many years, and thank goodness for all the way showers in the 60s and the 70s and all the opportunities that we've experienced it. But when we've taken personal responsibility for ourselves on an interpersonal level and really unified our very beingness. I mean, I even got calling. I wanted to unify my field, and my inner guidance says, and God said, they're not ready, and you're not ready. And I'm like, awesome. I'm not ready. What do I do for me to get ready to unify my field? Because I know that unification process will help deliver our humanity to a greater space, which we really are truly in our hearts wanting to create for ourselves and each other. And I realized that I needed to bring together all my lives that I didn't even know I had, and that got shown to me and that got understood. And I'm like, I'm going to clean up that life. I'm going to clean up this life. Somebody told me they were a coyote in a previous life or a rock. I'm like, that's so cool. What is a rock like? And so, these are experiences spiritually that we may or may not have, but we get to clean all of that up. We get to release all the judgments about it. We get to come into congruence with ourselves and the love that we truly are. And when we feel centered in that, we start living in the flow, life force energy, love force energy that flows through us. Then it becomes naturally and organic. We start living that, and our inner guidance or our higher self is driving our bus, our car, our body through life. When we're doing that, we naturally just start connecting with each other.
Mm.
And so going through the years of the intensive care unit, I got the opportunity to get really clear with my thoughts, my understandings, and understanding a lot about physiology of the body that allowed me to enter into the realm of energy healing to the level and the layer that I knew we could start with where we're at in our society.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I grew beyond that and grew out of that and moved into energy medicine, more preventative medicine, more root-based care medicine, understanding cause and effect and where did the energy get sourced from? Where did it go to? And then what was the energy that was in that in that exchange that created that discordance or that challenge or that condition or illness that we're here to help heal. And what we're healing is insanity. And we're healing the insanity that we're separate.
True.
It's what
True.
is really happening. And when we look at that that insanity to feel separate from each other and to feel separate from the love that we truly are impacts us and creates flows of energy to slow down or stop. And that stops life force energy, which actually impacts our body from a stress response
Right.
of any nature that causes illness and challenges. And so that's what we're here to clean up. And when we start to learn and develop mastery with the energy inside of us and all around us and with each other, there isn't any problem that we can't solve.
True. I got to ask you this, not because I'm nosy, just because it may have some code, and I'm just moved to ask you. So you checked out of the Matrix in September. I mean,
Yes,
I could describe it a different way,
it's a
but
good way.
that the health system is a huge construct, if not the biggest, really, uh, in the world. And you're in it for 32 years. You, like so many of us, have obviously something's happened. You look different. Your energy's different. There's a certain air of soul maturity that I think we're seeing in each other. I see it in you. And again, that doesn't mean I'm coming from a higher place. I'm just, we're soul brother, soul sister, and I'm just speaking to you as I would if we were alone. But have you noticed anything from September forward in terms of your personal relationships or your connections with other people? Something that you're seeing a marked difference within yourself, even with Marvin. And I hear that you guys are coming on next week, by the way. No, I'm kidding. I know Morgan's after that one. But no, have you noticed either a difference in yourself and gone, wow, I'm I'm moving along here, and or um, others in the connectivity they have with you, as a reflection of you. Have you noticed anything in these? Because these have been really transformational. I mean, you picked the right time because October 10th, everything just blew up, in a good way, obviously, but
Yeah.
in a challenging way for our human aspects. But have you noticed anything?
I've noticed so much. My learning has been vertical since healing my asthma and allergies 12 years ago. And it's been like shot out of a rocket ship. And people and places and resources just come to me naturally. I put out an intention, and you know the I could say the analogy about the driver's seat and letting my inner guidance or my higher guidance or my higher self come in and really be a part of my everyday, every moment, every breath experience. Yeah, it's radically different. It's
Mm,
different every day. It's different every moment. Because what I do is I let go, I unlearn what I've learned. And so when I've determined that my value, my belief system, my this is the way life is and this is how it's going to work, when I let go of all that stuff and I
right.
say, wow, I have a conflict or with myself or with other people or with what I'm creating or not creating. Okay, cool. It's obvious that I don't know how to do something in this moment.
Mm,
So what I do is I let go of I don't know how or I can't, and I move into I can. I just haven't learned how yet. And it's kind of funny because many of us that are called to speak and be on these shows, on your shows, and doing our own shows and our own projects and initiatives towards helping humanity. When you're a way shower or a leader or a visionary or a savant, everything that you're thinking of hasn't been created yet. And so needing to find proof or needing to have success already is kind of silly because you're the one that's going to create the proof.
right.
You're the one that's going to create the success, not anybody else. Or you might with a team or with other people, which I love to do. I think it's way better more on a team than it is by yourself. But the opportunity is we are the proof we choose to create.
Yeah.
And I came up with that statement a long time ago on a graphic on a meme, and everyone says, I don't understand what you're saying. And I said, it's because we're so oriented to success and we're so goal oriented to having proof before we get out there and walk the streets and do the thing we're called to do. We don't recognize that we're creating the proof. And then I recognized when we're out there alone, like there are many savants before us that have come into the world and created things before they were ever created. And we didn't know how to roll it out. We didn't know how to let the public know about it. We didn't know how to create that sociological change or that philosophical change or theosophy or many different things that we're doing to create a healthy environment for everyone.
Yeah.
And, we just get to go, wow, okay, this has never been created before. What will that look like? What would people like? What would people like to experience? How would they like to engage? Those kinds of things I don't think we're used to asking ourselves. And we're always looking then outside of ourselves for guidance and understanding when it hasn't been created. I asked Buddha and Jesus and all sorts of other energies and entities, how do we do this? How do we help the oneness children come in and express their total knowledge of connectivity in a world that's been completely individualized? How do we do that? And they're like, we don't know. We've never done it either. When they were alive, they didn't do it either. And so I'm like, okay, well, let's put all our heads together. Let's have a big meeting. Let's have a big Soulogy bus ride together, right?
There's only one seat in the damn thing. Be standing room only.
Well, they might not need seats, right?
True.
They don't have a bottom end anymore. And so, what if we all put our energies together and create this, which we haven't seen yet before? And then what does that look like? What does new schooling look like? What does a new banking system look like? What does a new government look like? Or do we need a government? What if military systems become humanitarian aid across the world?
Yeah.
There's so many things that we can do and we can bring together. So when we unify ourselves and we bring ourselves together feeling whole and peaceful and happy all day long, every day with every breath, knowing that our inner guidance is really here to guide us through the opportunities or the challenges we face, then we organically start to come together, like you and I and the others joining our show today, about how will I personally impact the world and influence the world that I am through love.
Yeah. No, I get that.
And that's
Because I look around and I'm really sensitive to words. I remember when I woke up 10 or 11 years ago, I kept hearing whatever you put out. How did this go? It was like kind of like, because it was a lot of writing. There wasn't any videos at the time. There wasn't any lives going on. It was a lot of writing every day. And it was like, don't use negative connotations. And I really didn't understand it, the download. But over time, it started to make more sense. And it's really come kind of almost like full circle now, just very recently, in the way that we talk. Like, for instance, what you're talking about right now, I relate that to what I hope I can do and what I will do. Like, how do I talk to myself? Do I hope I can build something substantial, or will I build something substantial? So there's like this they talk about spells, the word abracadabra, whatever. There's something there that has to it would appear. I mean, that it would need to transform or transition or something or evolve or mature, just as everything else. That's kind of a stickler. It's like, for instance, I cringe when somebody says it's going to be the year 2050 when we get there. Well, we're here now. We're already here. It's a matter of engaging, in my mind anyway, engaging this magic, what we might call magic, right?
right.
So I really get what you're saying. and I guess what I'm saying is that, first of all, I absolutely love your commentary because it's all about self ownership and self responsibility and self initiative, and internalization to create the external in all ways. And I also love the whole creativity, collaboration, um, and I guess I want to say the changing of the guard, but like the changing of the guard. Like
Yeah.
this is doable because you hear a lot, even in these communities, you'll hear, yeah, they're not going to do that, or they're not awake, or we need to fight them, or So there's something in the language that I say language both figuratively and literally that would seem like it's going to be important for us in order to make that jump and move out of this space of hope. Because I have a real problem with that.
Yeah.
I hope I get to go to Australia, or I will go. Like
Right.
there's something about the programming aspect that feels like it's available now. I did affirmations in my 20s and my 30s, and they worked to some degree in goal setting and writing my goals every day and so on. But there was always this element that I wasn't aware of until I got in a little bit older and got into these circles. And I think this is some of the stuff, at least for me, that's starting to change. Like, I don't give a shit. I don't care what the rules say. We're doing this. I'm
Well,
not.
I have a sense of, what you're talking about is like bridging the gap of where we've been and where we're going to, and
Yeah.
in the now moment. And how do we create that transition? And really, I have these ideas of this developing these energy mastery schools to start from preconception. So meeting with parents who are deciding to have a baby or to come together and create a baby. And then literally connecting with that spiritual essence of this baby coming in and starting the relationship there with the child
Mm.
before conception. Then during conception, what does that mean to love one another and become one with the opportunity of creating a concepted or conceptual, right, bringing in a baby? And what does that mean in that moment? And then working with, after you've conceived the baby and you're pregnant, now with the mother and the father and the baby and or siblings or other people in the family, or the community, and even all of humanity. What if all of humanity knew every time somebody was conceived on this planet, and we had 8.6 billion people cheering on this couple having a baby or whatever, right?
That's how it used to be.
How is that? How cool is that? Right,
That's how it used
exactly.
to be in the villages, right? In the tribes, right?
Exactly. And then bringing this idea of energy mastery while gestating a child. What does that mean? When the dad's upset, when the mom's upset, when it's a same sex couple, whatever it is, right? That how does the fetus take in that information and process that information? What does that mean? What does that mean when they're having a challenging time or they're having a good time? And it isn't all about seeking about the good times, but it's about like letting the fetus know, rubbing your hands together and saying, I let go of my frustration and anger, and I bring in love into my hands, and I touch my belly, and I say, I can understand through water that your amniotic fluid might have a little bit of anger in it. It's not about you. It's sometimes when we're out here in the physical world, it's a little bit challenging. And so these are some of the challenges that I've dealt with today. And it's not about you, and I'm so glad you're here, and so on and so forth. They don't realize that we can have a communication and an interaction and a relationship with each other when we start connecting in these ways through the energies,
Yeah,
telepathically, empathically, physically with water.
yeah. And I know in talking to you before that, because I said to you, God, you must, what do they think of you? Like, what do your coworkers think of you? And it was interesting because you said, well, obviously, I'm a little different than they are, but they call me in to make these connections. So there
Yeah,
was like
in
this.
the last 2 weeks, I was there when I knew I was going to be ending then. because it was funny because the governor decided that, not other people, which is kind of funny, right? But anyway, um, is they started to talk to me and they started to talk amongst themselves very honestly and very openly. Many of them never wanted vaccines. Many of them, I mentioned to one nurse that I was working with that she had a headache, and I felt the headache because we were in the same room working on a very, very sick, critically ill child. And so I said, I feel your headache. I said, the last 2 weeks I was there, I was just going to be open and honest about who I am and what I am. And I said, I feel your headache. And she goes, how do you feel my headache? I said, well, it's called physical surrogacy. And many times as healers, we can feel each other's pain and suffering
Mm.
because we're alerted to it to offer resources or help. And she said, really? You can feel my headache? I said, yeah, it's right over your right eye. It's right behind your right eye. And I could say the intensity is probably in your perceptual awareness is an 8 out of a 10. Would that be pretty accurate? And she said, yeah, it's exactly accurate. And I said, yeah. And she said, how do you know how to do that? And I said, again, we're healers. We're connected to each other through oneness. Even in our pain and suffering, we're connected with each other. That's what a lot of the empaths around the planet feel when geopolitical things or other things get out of whack, or
Mm.
a volcano gets out of whack, or
Mm.
a hurricane or whatever, that we can feel these things and they're real. It's not imaginary.
You touched on in what you just said on a lot of things, but you also kind of led in with um, people were more open, and your colleagues were not in alignment. They were in cognitive dissonance in
Yeah.
terms of getting the vaccine and staying employed or
Yeah.
fear or whatever. But they were opening up to you. We started talking about this subject at the beginning of the show, and I wanted to dive in deeper, but I didn't want to dive in at the beginning of the show, not because I'm scared of censorship, um, but it just seemed like a better strategy.
Oh, it's okay.
So
You know
no,
what's
no, no, no.
amazing is,
I want to jump into it though, because
yeah,
I want to ask you,
yeah.
because you mentioned earlier some things, and some of these things I've heard, in terms of 5G and all that stuff. But what do you feel is the energy behind it all? Why is this happening? What are your thoughts? Uh, because I feel like 32 years, not only in the let's just say the matrix medical field, but also in the holistic metaphysical medical field. Uh, you know, uh, what are your thoughts on it? What's going on? Why is it happening? What do you want to share with us?
Well, many people ask me if I can tell the future. And I say, yes, I can tell the future. But what future would you like me to talk about? And so we create in every moment, in every way, through our thoughts, through our emotions, through our beliefs, through our value systems, and we create intentions all the time.
Hmm.
I need to go to the bathroom. I want a glass of water. I want to go to college. I don't want to go to college. I want this job. I want this relationship, whatever. We do it all day long. And we don't realize those intentions start piling up on each other. So we're creating many, many, many facets of pathways for our future. So which one do you want and which one is happening? So I really understand the value of that. And I don't really get into the future very much, or get into why is it that we created what we created. Because I recognize that all of us add to the whole. And many of us that stand in leadership, I even call myself, when I look at global and energy healer, I was wondering, what does that mean? I'm really a universal energy healer. But I decided not to share that because maybe not everybody understands what that means. But that's okay too, because what is a global energy healer? It's one that looks at the energy of the planet, the energy of all of humanity, irregardless or irrespective of our color, race, creed, anything else, and where we live on the planet. And what does that mean to unify that process? And I didn't imagine it or sit out and write a goal sheet on I'm going to be a global planetary steward. It comes into your awareness naturally and organically. You don't make it happen.
Mm.
It becomes a part of you. It becomes a living essence inside of you, and it's natural. And when it's natural, you like you share so well. You and Morgan and others share so well of living in the flow. So I live in the flow. I live in that ocean as a drop called Ashley Lee, in a drop where Todd Medina and thousands and millions and billions of other people live in this same ocean called humanity. So I support elevating everyone so that we can all interexchange our wishes, our support, our desires, our manifestations to support the whole, raising the whole of humankind, not just a particular group or a particular person,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. And so I'm not sure if that completely answered your question. Please ask any others that are tangential to that. But that's really how I feel is we can raise the bar for everyone, not leaving anyone out.
I like that answer. I like that answer because I see a lot of, I still see a lot of, yeah, it's so important what you're saying because you can't convince me that if statements are being made about, let's just say, the doom and gloom, uh, if they're if they're spoken in a way that carries a charge, oh, they're doing this to us and they're doing that to us. I cannot be convinced that that's not coming with a set of intentions that's not in the 0 point field. And I don't give a shit how holy you are,
Right,
including myself.
right,
I'm just saying that I hear what you're saying. I think that's a great answer. I think a lot of this stuff that's happening for us in these communities, in our connections, in our relationships, is being transmitted and exchanged uh, without words and even without consciousness. And if it does become conscious, it comes into your awareness or your consciousness a little like in a delayed reaction, like a delayed way.
right,
But I feel like there's significant evidence in the individual journey of people's lives in the and I'm just can only draw from this universe that or these types of communities or Soulogy or my own interactions. Uh, that's where the evidence is. The evidence is somebody quit after 32 years and didn't make a big fuss and just said, "I'm not going to do this." We have another
well,
something.
one of the charge nurses asked me, it was really awesome, and she said, I have a sense you can clear energetically vaccines from your body. And she asked me in front of many of our other colleagues together.
Yeah,
And I said, you're right. I can, but I'm not going to anymore
that's right.
because you all and others do not know yet how to do it. I haven't put it out yet. I would love to put it out. Like, we can all learn how to clear vaccines. We can all learn how to clear preservatives and terrible things that are in these things out. But the fact that they didn't know how to yet, I didn't see any reason to continue into that environment anymore.
Because
That's not
she was basically saying to you, "Go get the." Was she saying to you, "You should go ahead and get it because you can clear it."
right.
Right.
And I said, there's a bigger ethical and moral issues here at hand.
Right.
And then she was really sad because she said, well, you have started your energy healing business. And I said, yes, I have. And I have because I've been called to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it to make money in that way. And to do that, I'm answering my calling and my purpose in life like we all are in
Right.
all of our different ways. And so it was very sad for them to feel stuck. And I said, we really have to let go of this idea of being stuck
Hmm.
and being stuck to a job or stuck to a paycheck or stuck to mediocrity or stuck to fear based vaccination programs and all sorts of things like that. When
Right.
can we start to live more freely and more openly? And when I helped the nurse with her headache, for example, and her headache cleared, and I showed her how to clear it inside herself, and her headache cleared, and then another child had needed some CPR and needed some other things in the ICU, so it reignited her headache. And I said, it's okay, it's just a stressor, and we can unignite your headache and bring it back down again. Then she told all her friends, and 30 minutes later, they all show up in the room, and they said, Ashley, you're the real healer. And I said, no, I'm not. And I was wearing the mask and the whole thing. And I said, no, I'm not. I'm not the real healer. We're all real healers, all of us. We're just at different stages of development about how we utilize our healing capacities and our callings in life and our giftedness. You're all gifted, and we are all gifted. And I'm so honored to have been here with you all during these times. And I'm sorry to see myself leave. But at the same time, I know that I can support on a much larger scale than what I've been doing in here. And I'm so grateful and appreciative to be in this environment to learn how to navigate many of these energies, which are so challenging for all of us. And it was awesome.
Bam, bam.
Bam!
You bammed your way. You went out like a boss.
It was awesome, and it was a
You went
lot of
out like a
fun, and it was a
boss.
lot of fun sharing heart to heart, more than woo woo to woo woo sort of stuff. It's not woo woo. We're just, when we get clear with our thoughts and we get clear with our intentions and we get clear with our emotions and how we drive our bus called our life,
Mm-hmm.
when we get very clear about that, the navigation becomes simple.
Yeah.
Like, it's clear when you know where to drive to, for example, in your car. And if you don't know where to drive to, you have a navigation system either on your phone or in other ways. And then you feel much more confident because you've developed at least systems or resources that can help you move through what it is you want to move through. And what we're talking about, you and I, and many others across the planet, is self navigation, inner navigation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so vital. And that's why creating energy mastery for each of us individually and then collectively is, I sense, really where we want to go to, where we want to be in the world, living our true nature selves and being a part of this big puzzle called life and humanity and planet Earth, and learning to live in such a way that it's synergistic,
Mm.
confluent, and congruent with each other and meeting each other's needs right where it is.
God, beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. When you headed back to Sedona?
It was next week, and now I think it might be a couple of weeks. But there's a conference in March that Kate and I might go to, so we're excited to
Is that the
see
Team Light?
everybody.
The Team Light one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
at the Unity Church, the Sedona retreat. I
The
think
unit. What is it? It's Team Light, though, right? Isn't it?
I think so. There's SedonaRetreat.com.
Oh, I don't know. Then I don't
Yeah,
know if that's the
it's
same one.
okay. It's a beautiful place for everyone to congregate.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I'm sure I'll probably run into you in the flesh in 2022. I just have a feeling.
Yes, I do too.
I've already had this mapped out in my head. If not if, when, because it looks like this is the quickest route for unification. When Morgan lands in the U.S., I figure it's going to be in L.A.
Oh,
so
I'm so
I'm not going to
excited.
wait. I'm not going to wait for the plane from L.A. to Arkansas. I'm going to just drive out there and pick her up.
Well, let's meet
Um,
in LA.
yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah. All right. Well, give our best to Marvin and
thank
your whole crew. I know they're you know grown up and all that, but yeah, just yeah. Thank you for spending this. It was good seeing you. I love you very much, and
you. I love you.
I don't know what else to say because I don't feel like I'm saying goodbye to you. For some reason, it
Well,
just doesn't. That doesn't.
we could depart with the idea of really supporting everyone connecting to their energy
Yeah.
and connecting to their own energy, their physical body, their mental mind, their thoughts, either the left or the right side, even in the back in the cerebellum, right? How we move through life. And then also really our emotions and our spirituality and connecting to all of that and really bringing that in focused every day and really mastering and connecting to the idea that we can have mastery with our energy on all
We,
levels in all ways, with even with relationships with each other.
hmm,
And it really does bring in the sense of unity, and when we feel unified, we feel the love flow. And when
yeah,
the love flow, wellness occurs for the individual, for both of us, for all of us watching the show, and then for the earth and each other. And that's what I
amazing,
think is so valuable.
amazing,
Thank you.
amazing to hook up with you and experience this and share this space with you.
Thank you. Me too.
Love you.
Lots of love,
I'll
everyone.
see you when I
Thank you.
see you.
See you when you see.
Yeah, what I mean. In the ethers or in the physical
We
or
can
both,
see each other in the ethers every day,
all day long.
all
All day.
day long. I love connecting.
All right. You take care.